I'd like to call to order the Blue Carroll School District Board of Education planning session on February 26th, 2020. I'd like to do a call to order. Mr. Bigham?
Mr. Abbott?
Present.
Mr. Bratton?
Present.
Mr. Jimmy Johnson?
Present.
Mr. Rod Johnson?
Present.
Mrs. Sherman?
Present.
Pledge of Allegiance led by Mr. Millis.
Oh,
Right.
I had a feeling that was going to happen tonight. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Moving on to D, consider approval of the agenda. Did anybody have any questions for the agenda for tonight? No changes at all, no addendums? All right. Can I get a motion, please?
So moved.
Second. Motion made by Mr. Abbott, second by Mr. Bratton. Travis?
Mr. Abbott?
Yes.
Mr. Bratton?
Yes.
Mr. Jimmy Johnson?
Yes.
Mrs. Sherman?
Yes.
And Mr. Rod Johnson.
Yes. E, planning session. Number 1, facilities.
Okay, we have, I've asked for the board for Summit Construction, our contractor building the Blue Carroll Elementary School, the K-5 building, to come in and meet with we have 2 new board members that were sworn in January, and I wanted both of them and the board to have an update, but also get familiar with the project managers working for Summit Construction on our project. They have obviously presented in the past to the other school board members, but things are coming along, and I just wanted them to go over a few things that we need to discuss tonight, get some input from the board. Obviously, no decisions are made with the planning session, but I wanted Summit to go over the project, just a project update, where things stand, what's been done, go over the construction schedule that they've really firmed up a little bit more for the actual building. And then one thing that we need to discuss or consider, I told some people in the design process, we had a community forum, and I had a community member ask, could the tennis courts go in early? And those are certainly some things that we talked about and have looked at, and I want to share with the board some thoughts on that and get their input as well to help Summit Construction kind of finalize their project schedule for us. So I'm going to turn it over to Andy Rogers and Adam Hewer from Summit Construction for project update.
Great, well, thank you. Mr. Travis, is that drone video?
Yeah.
So, last week, certainly not one of our guys from our office, he came down and flew the drone over. We thought it'd be good to just have a minute and a half kind of video while we kind of update what's going on, to show kind of overview, bird's eye view of exactly what's going on the site as we speak. So, also we handed out, we kind of did an overlay, drone shot, and then tried to overlay the drawings the best we could, so you can kind of see the floor plan matched up with the bird's eye view from the drone. For anything like me, I need to flip it, just so the BC's upside down. So this is Carroll Eastern Road. That's how I have to do it. Yeah. So. Kind of give you a look from Carroll Eastern to kind of let you know exactly what's going on. To the left, you'll see Area A, and then it goes Area A, B, C across the page there. What we're calling Area D is in the back of the house, the gym, student dining, kitchen area. So right now, looking at Area A, B, and C and D, all the underground plumbing, everything is completely done, stubbed up and ready for concrete slab. We have the slabs poured. In A and B close to the admin area, or I'm sorry, A and C close to the admin area, which we're calling Area D. Those blankets in the back there, the gym student dining area, that's basically protecting the sub base from cold weather, so we don't have to come back and then kind of thaw out all that sub base and more ready for the slab. So we'll do that. Obviously we've been bad all, but it's been a weird winter. Nothing is freezing and thawing, freeze thaw kind of thing. Battle in the mud, fighting through it. But overall, I think we've made really good progress throughout the winter. I think having all the foundations done, having all the slabs done is going to really make the bearing construction, which is very important that we'll talk about in a minute. really go considerably better now that we have the opportunity to look up, as well. So, right now, our mason is on site. We are in area A, building walls. If you go out there now, you'll actually see it's tented over. They did that on their own accord, keep working, which we really like. They've been great so far. So they're putting the block up, now in area A. They're bumping the speed everything. So they're moving from area A to bump. So our classroom wings are really what we're counting. Those two-story classroom wings, from a schedule standpoint, are extremely critical. So that's what we really want to concentrate on. So, we get lintels that carry above the windows, block above the windows. Those are coming next week, and that'll allow Mason to continue up. So, getting to that, actually, that precast second floor bearing is really what we're looking for. And then once they get there, then they'll bounce over there to see them do something. So, offset utility wise, Bedrock's work, they started from the village, bringing the water down to the site. I think they're almost to the existing gas lines now, so they're kind of just working that way. They'll bring it to the site, and we'll have water to the site. So that's very critical for us as well.
We have it back, the gas line in there, so we'll make sure we don't run into any issues with transmitting with that, so everyone wants to, we should have water to the site hopefully in the week.
So from a,
Goodbye, I'm sorry, they're gonna start the force main, sanitary line as soon as the water line is complete, so they'll get all that work done on fairly soon, easy and
so our original baseline schedule had, which bearing walls drive the entire schedule. We had that started, actually this week, we started a week early, so that was great. So, we're just gonna, we're just gonna continue hammering out walls, and I think precast is scheduled for April. Mid-April for those precast planks, the second floor precast planks, which are obviously critical in taking walls over. So, our goal, is to have the roof on in August, roof on the building, extremely critical for activities like drywall, paint, exposed wire, insulation on pipe and duct. Those are all things we absolutely will not do until the building is closed and done. So those are big dates, and so in order to maintain schedule, we need to really push to get the roof on, and that's going to be our focus for the next several months.
Questions? Is that video something you'd be able to share on Facebook?
You can have that.
Yeah, absolutely. And we also have some of our own drone videos, photos that we've been taking, as well, but we can certainly get something out here in the next month, kind of giving an update and showing some of these pictures. I don't know if you've got any pictures, or I might have missed it if Andy mentioned it, but the area A and C there, the slab, that's concrete. It's hard to tell between concrete and gravel, like in area A, which is, or B, which is the middle section there. But yeah, I was out there a couple days ago, and the masonry block was already going up on this, along where the scaffolding is right here. But it's kind of neat to see it finally coming up out of the ground, and feel like things are going well. Feel great with the off-site utilities. I mean, first day they got 180 some feet of water line put in, and we had to stop the last couple days with the weather, but like you guys said, they'll pick that up, and then they'll get to the force main line, and things seem to be progressing. Feel good about the schedule.
We do. Our subcontractors have been great. Yeah, we're really happy with the way things are going. Obviously, the masonry is what's going to drive this thing for the next few months, so that's going to be okay.
Andy, if you would, real quick, because we'll get on this discussion later as a board, but in regards to the tennis courts, I know we've had conversations within our facilities commission meeting, and the committee meetings Joe and I would have in regards to that. But can you let the other board members, because obviously we're looking at this right now, what are some of the factors that we need to take into consideration? Obviously, number one, safety, because we probably have to get more fencing put up around that. There's a construction area, and we're still gonna be working on that. But just from, if you can, on that dwelling area there, I mean, the mud and just everything, people getting stuck, I mean, how's that going to impact what you guys are doing or anything?
Yeah, it's an interesting, you know, Adam and I talked a lot about it, obviously, when we were presented with this idea. I guess the first thing I told Adam was, you know, obviously we're always here to try and do what's best for you, you know, we always look at that, but I told Adam, I said, you know, if this was, if we were opening the building in August, and this was, and we were talking about opening tennis courts in June, and we were opening the building, and we're that far along, this is an entirely different discussion. The unique situation that we're in is, when you're talking about opening tennis courts, where we're actually gonna be setting steel, putting the roof on, even working, you know, still doing some bearing walls, probably, for the gym, or maybe in certain areas of the second floor, that's a unique situation. A lot of contractors, and the other thing I think from a schedule standpoint is, if it rains during the summer, those contractors, they wanna work on the weekend, and we want them to, you know, right? We wanna maintain the schedule, so what does that look like? With a mix of contractors on site versus, the public, and those are unique situations that, you know, have some concern.
And one of the things too, it's just concerning a little bit, is from a foundation perspective, that we've already got there. If somebody were to run over something like a wellhead or anything, like, without being marked, you know what I'm saying? From that aspect, I mean, I know there's some that's gonna be on that side, and we'll get those.
Yeah,
And the catch basin.
yeah, so this, you can see one right here.
Yeah.
In the existing, in the drives that we cut in the early site package, are just a stone surface now. That's still obviously is asphalt, so many guys drives over a catch basin, that is raised up, and you can drive over it, and I don't know what that looks like from a district standpoint, from a liability standpoint. I mean, those are, it really is a unique situation. I mean, there are always measures that we can try and put in place, but it's usually a little farther down the line. That's
Right.
kind of the
Unique situation.
yeah. It just because it, you know, if it was a couple months ahead of, and when we're putting furniture in,
Right.
that's a different.
And about that same time, we would actually have those construction trucks going in and out of, there are people who can be coming for practice, or parents can be coming in for a match. So, because we're not gonna be going to be expanding to the turn lane into there by that time as well.
That's the other key aspect of that turn lane, is not going to be in June. We wouldn't want to put it in this early, because you don't want to beat it up.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's another unique aspect, there's no decel lane at all. And you got, you know, so you're mixing it with construction traffic.
When will the turn lane be?
We want to put that in,
Around that.
Around June.
I think it's a late fall.
Late summer,
yeah,
fall.
Yeah.
Remember, and I don't mean to get ahead, but if we, you know, take a look, if these guys are ready, I mean, I gave the board the, proposed project schedule that was kind of firmed up from, February the 5th. And, you know, obviously the board has that, and if Travis,
we
you
disconnect.
can switch out here real quick. It's in your packet, and it begins on page 5. Andy, I don't know if you want to talk about the general timeframe from beginning to end, and, you know, when, you know, if you look at the different milestones, for the project, and if there's anything you want to talk about with that, or each area. I mean, this has the
Yeah,
entire.
so we, just like we talked about earlier, we break out our schedule, per how it's labeled on the drawing, so how Shore lays out A, B, C, D. We set up our schedule, that's how we track progression, make sure the subcontractors are hitting the dates that are required. But if you go back to milestones. So these, we call them dry-in, Area C, dry-in days, those dates are extremely critical. So, you know, these maybe fluctuate a little based on weather, from precast to setting steel. Overall, we're looking at the big picture on when are we going to be driving. That is critical, so hitting those dates on when the actual roof goes in and on, because that, again, a lot of the activities after that are tied to that, so we absolutely cannot insulate pipe, do all that, put drywall up, which obviously is very critical. We can't do all that, we can't do any of that work, we can't paint the block walls until that roof is on and that building is dry. So it's extremely critical that we hit our milestone date for closure.
Andy, the duration, I mean, you know, in the pre-bond planning with Shore Architects and a little bit of Summit Construction, and obviously, once we passed the bond issue and we started from the schedule, you guys have an aggressive schedule, but I guess I want to point out that when you look at the building construction timeline here, you still have us finishing, you know, right around March of 2021,
Right.
which we said would be done in the spring of 21.
Right.
Was the original proposal, and I think as we kind of transition, you know, and look at other issues to talk about with the schedule that Summit needs some feedback on to solidify their schedule. I think it's important to remember that it is a construction site. We had always proposed pre-bond that the site would be open to students in the community in August of 2021. The district will get the site in the building occupancy permit probably in the spring of 21, and then we have a few months to prep, and that's what we had always intended. But that didn't mean that students would have access during construction. Students would have access to the site in August of 21. And for example, the tennis courts were always intended to be at that site and accessible beginning August 1st, the fall season of 21. Like I said, throughout the community planning process, the question came up, could we do it early? Well, we worked with Shore, we worked with Glenn Decker, an engineer, to measure on this campus. We looked at some areas up by the JV softball diamond, right next to the varsity softball field. We looked at the parking lot right behind the main entrance. There's a sign, a Bloom Carroll, Bloom Carroll entrance sign, and then right behind that we have a parking lot. We even looked at trying to take that lot out and put tennis courts in there, and we just can't fit 5 courts in on this campus. There's only 40 acres here, and we just don't have the room. If the board wants to take out the Arboretum, and I am not recommending that, I want to be on the record, I'm not recommending that, then you can probably find space on this site. But again, that's a board decision. So we go back to the only other place that we have available close to this campus is our Carroll Eastern site. And, Summit will work with us, but there are major concerns that, my job is to do what's best for our students, but also protect the district and ensure the safety of our students. And when you look at some of the things to be concerned about, number one with safety is the fact that there is a school zone that has been established by the county engineer. That school zone and that speed limit will be 20 miles per hour once school is in session. So that school zone will not be established in the summer or August of 2020. It will be in effect once the school opens up. And that speed limit will be 20 miles per hour, and there will be turn lanes in both directions to access the site and multiple lanes to exit as well. Having young 16, 17-year-old, 18-year-old student drivers pulling in and out of that site at 45 miles an hour, because it's not a school zone at that time, I have concerns under those conditions with construction traffic also coming in and out. Once you access the main gate, the front gate, where there's a security fence that we put up and along the west side, you have full access to the entire site. And what I mean by that is, it's a construction site. It's not a school site at that time. And once you come in here, you have complete access to this building, to the second floor, to steel being set, electrical wiring being ran. Second floors that will sometimes not have walls. It again is a construction site. You can see on the site plan in the packet on page 22, you can see where the 5 tennis courts are located. And for students to be coming in here, there's infrastructure that's been put in place, catch basins for the storm sewers that raise up 6-7 inches, and if we hit those that are already set and the masonry work's been done and we do damage, we have change orders to bring those people back out to repair those types of things. They can also damage cars if you're not careful out there. If there's nails, things where people have damage to their cars, that's a concern. Damaging the tennis courts. This site will not have a final grade this summer. It will not have seating this summer. There are still utilities and trenches being dug. As that happens, it will be a muddy site at times, and balls that are hit out of the court, you have to go get, and you walk back on, and you have this beautiful tennis court in the purple that the parents want, that I fully support and I think will look awesome. You have that possibly being ruined in that process. There's just a lot of things. This is obviously an image or a rendering of what it'll look like, but there's a lot of stuff going on throughout this entire site right now. I encourage the board members to drive out there and enter the site and take a good look around and consider some of those things. Again, owner occupancy, I think, for the district, the board needs to consider that. But my job is to protect the district and do what is best and safest for our students. I also have concerns that I'm not making any, I don't have any knowledge of this, but in past projects, when you have subcontractors on your campus working for long periods of time, you require background checks because you have students during the summer on your campus for camps and things like that. When we do a high school roof project, those employees that work for subcontractors that are here every day working on roofs in other parts of the building, those companies provide us with background checks. And that's to make sure that our students that are on our campus, regardless of the time of year, are safe. If we have tons of subcontractors that have been selected to perform different projects within this main project at the site, and we have students practicing there at 2:15 in the afternoon from August 1st through the end of October, that really restricts sometimes some of the employees, even though they may not be, and I don't want to create alarm, but if they are not predators, they still have offenses that may not permit them to be around students. So some of the employees working with subcontractors, all those subcontractors would probably be required to provide background checks if we're going to have students there at a site where the students could be seen or within proximity of construction workers or employees of subcontractors. So again, once people access the site, random community members can come back to a construction site and access courts as well during the day. Those are just things to consider. We have thought about this a lot. We have talked to Summit about this a lot. I think it'll be important for the board to provide some insight as we try to provide more, firm responses for Summit to get it on the schedule. But it was always intended, until the question came up, and we promised we'd look into it. It was always intended to have access to the courts in August of 21 or the summer of 21 when the site is a school site.
One real quick question. If we were to fence that area in around the school building, that's probably gotta be a considerable cost. I wanna say when we talked about it, it would probably cost anywhere from $20,000 to $30,000 to do that.
Well,
is that correct?
Well, Andy can talk about this, but we have saved, we have fenced in the front here. There's a creek here. We have fenced in the front and the west side of the property, okay? Once you access that, you have full access. If we were to wrap the entire building construction site, we saved about over $20,000 in security and fencing by not fencing all the way back around. If we did that, we'd have to find $20,000 in the project. It's not gonna be for free to fence that in.
Okay.
Here's my question.
I think the other pinch point here is this parking area. What do we do with it? You're gonna have construction work there, and that's also where I would assume
So I have
visitors.
2 points, and that addresses one, that earlier drone shot, it showed a few trailers and trucks. It's the middle of winter,
Right.
obviously we're moving forward, but it's not as busy as it's gonna be in 4 or 5 months.
I mean, the challenge is you're talking about peak construction.
Right, so first of all, where are you going to put all of that and have to worry about parking for tennis? But I don't, and you guys would be able to answer it better than I would or we would, I think. I don't know that the authority having jurisdiction would even let us do this.
That's what I mean. We don't have occupancy permits.
Right, so, before we occupy the building, we're gonna have to have life safety
They-
inspections.
That is a great question.
It just-
Will they give you a temporary to basically be here?
But it's not just there, we're opening
Yeah.
access, from that
Well, I
gate
think
back.
you're gonna have to have some kind of measure to keep people, even if you put a fence, the fence has to start off of Carroll Eastern so big trucks can swing in. So what's to say a student won't drive on the other side of it?
Right. And we're saying students, and we're saying people affiliated with the tennis program, but, people driving down the road, see these other cars back there, and they say, hey, get back here and check it out.
That's natural.
I really think it's almost a dead issue, just because of the, not having.
I guess I just wanted to make sure that people were aware and the board was aware that if I got the question, I certainly looked into it and, threw it in front of the board to be aware of that. And that, again, I feel like we've exhausted every opportunity on this campus. Those 5 courts in different configurations, would go right up to you have to have about 10 feet behind the tennis court baseline to the fencing at least, and we could not fit that in where the JV softball field is and put a softball field out there. We looked at all different scenarios, and there's just not a good one besides in my opinion, the safest for the district and for our students, even though there may be some that disagree, is to continue to stay on the original time frame and open the site to students at the same time, rather than try to force the issue. I just think that there's a lot of liability and safety concerns for our students. My main concern is in and out traffic for students.
Sean, I commend you for your attention to this, just because it was one question and it affects a specific demographic of kids that we're trying to serve. But I also think the liability piece, as a mom with other parents from other districts coming with all their little kids running around the site, is way too dangerous. For, they're not watching their kids. I'm talking my personal experience myself with my little guy running off and, doing this or doing that. And it's the liability of something happening to a child who isn't involved in tennis, who isn't a teenager, who isn't a driver. And I know those are your concerns for the older kids. Mine would be for other community members from different schools coming, not understanding what's going on, thinking it's fine, just let their kids run, and then something terrible inadvertently happening to a child. So for that point of view, and all the discussion we've had, that hasn't really been brought up, and that would be my main concern, would be spectators.
What do we think too, though? I agree with you completely. What do we think about from a practice perspective? Same thing, same issue.
That's what I'm saying.
It's going back to the same issue.
Yeah,
Safety.
students, I certainly don't, I
You're
don't
still
put
opening
any,
it up for anybody
yeah.
to come.
Correct.
But even, I'm just talking about, not even considering, and I talked to Mr. Little about this. You certainly wouldn't want additional spectators and school buses coming in from visiting schools to that site. But I'm also concerned about the 10 students or more and a few adults that we would have for practices out there in August of 2020, this coming summer, under those conditions. Again, I would be worried for the board. I'd be more worried for our students. I wish I could wave a wand and put the courts somewhere right now, but I just don't feel it puts Summit Construction in a good position for the subcontractors, and I fear that a student can trickle off for whatever reason and get into a site where there's open second floors and steel and electrical work being ran. It's going to be a busy summer out there. So just my opinion, but it's only one. I think it's important. There was a rumor that I kind of caught wind of that I want to certainly clear up when it comes to something. I've heard some people say that, well, we're worried they're going to run out of money on the project and not put the tennis courts in. Okay, so first of all, the project delivery method for this project is called CMR, Construction Manager at Risk, and they have given us, Summit Construction has given us 2 GMPs for the early site cost and then for the site, the actual building construction cost. And within the project budget, you have a building cost, but then separate, because when we went to the ballot in May of 2018, we were funding these tennis courts through a locally funded initiative. They're 100% paid for by our community, by our taxpayers. Okay, it was part of that bond issue. But when you look at the project budget, you have a building cost, and then you have an LFI. The locally funded initiative, the tennis courts were part of the locally funded initiative. They are kept separate from the building project. They're in the overall project budget, but the GMP for the building is separate from the tennis courts and the cost for the tennis courts. The $279,000 for the tennis courts is not part of the actual elementary building project. So it's not like we're going to be dipping into those funds to make up for something. You guys want to talk about the GMP?
So several months ago when we signed that guaranteed maximum price, that's the at-risk part, and we're basically saying, okay, Summit, this is yours now. So everything on those drawings and in that spec work is our liability now. We have to produce that for you, the owner. So as we continue down the path of hiring subcontractors, maybe flooring, painting, those kind of things, if those things go over what we had budgeted in the GMP, that is our problem, not you, the owner. we signed on the dotted line, said that's the guaranteed maximum price, so, those things go on, there's a separate pot of money called construction contingency that is set aside to deal with, those things like that. It's kind of our safety net. Things do change, market changes all the time, but it does not come out. It's not going back to you, the owner, and asking for additional money.
Yeah, and I think where that's coming from is, in 2009, when this middle school bond issue was passed, it was a design bid build, and the construction manager at risk project delivery method was really in its infancy at that time, and it has really come a long way in the last 3 or 4 years, especially. Most districts are using this delivery method now. But when costs or bids came in higher and things had to be reduced out of this, if people say, see, they cut that out of that middle school project, that's because of the options at the time. We're using a completely different project delivery method where, again, Summit has to take responsibility after that GMP was issued and the board approved it. We know what our budget is for this project, and if they can't deliver within that, that's on their cost. And they've built enough schools that they feel comfortable.
Just to add to that, we've bought out most of our major packages, and that's not an issue.
What do you mean bought out?
So we've issued subcontracts to the contractors, all the large packages, that's already done. So
Right.
what we have left to buy out would be $500,000 less packages. So.
And again, the tennis court cost is separate within that. That money's not being touched until we're ready. But so the question was, why don't you put them in? You have the money. We do have the money, and we will have the money. They've checked on costs. We've checked on things like purple paint and gray paint and fencing. I mean, they know the cost of this at this point.
And
So
we're going green.
Yeah.
that's what they will be in the summer.
We're certainly not going into it blind. I mean, that's our job, is to make sure we're.
Yeah. So the Summit is going to chip in that purple cost, so that's when we might be able to talk to the board about.
That's
a little sign.
clearly wrong.
Yeah. So,
Well, they'll be beautiful when they're done.
yeah.
I think it's awesome.
Yeah.
So no, things are going well.
Great.
Again, big picture wise, enclosure in August, punching your building in March, turn it over in April.
Thank you for the video and everything. It's
Sure.
awesome. It's so exciting.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate
Thanks.
it. You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. See you next Friday. All right, moving on. We've got our friends with the athletic boosters. Looks like we got Barb and Mark here and Mr. Little. First and foremost, for you guys to come up, I'm sure everybody up here wants to thank you for your hard work and your tireless efforts that you do. I know you guys have been the same group of officers for as long as I can remember, to be honest with you. And I know it's hard to find volunteers, but I think I want to personally thank you for everything you've done for the school district. I think a lot of these teams have everything they need at times when they need them. You guys just do an amazing job, so first and foremost, I just want to thank you for your time and commitment to the school district.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. It's very kind of you. We do this because we like to do it, and we enjoy each other's company. And so, as long as that's the case, I think we're in good shape. So, Mr. Hahn, Mr. Bigham, members of the board, our group has been very blessed over the years. We've been able to build a new concession stand at the Pavilion, a project that ended up being about $250,000 between what was spent on it and volunteer time.
Illegally, maybe, but.
Yeah. A project we did in conjunction with the music boosters. Then more recently, we built a new entry in partnership with the board, a project that was about $120,000. And now we still continue to be financially blessed, and to the point now we want to talk about a partnership on a third project, which would be replacing our press box. The press box that we have now, I think by most people's consideration, would be considered adequate, but not up to date on the latest and greatest things. Chad can talk a lot more about it than I can, but when I go up there on a Friday night, it always looks like it's in kind of level of chaos because of the fact that there's really, everybody's kind of in there together. What we talked about doing is replacing that press box with something that would give teams more privacy, for the home team or for the visitors team, in a separate place that's open for the PA and the other people that need to keep track of everything. It also would have a roof, that would have, team access, around it. And, so we'd like to talk with you about possibility of probably, of doing a project where we could replace this, the press box. And so what we've talked about doing at this point, is, this is our idea, is for us to pay for the building, the press box itself, and the steel support, below it, and to have the board or the district, pay for the other remaining costs that go along with it. That would be like, electrical work, concrete work on the site to be ready for the, steel support, work on Wi-Fi that needs to be done, demolition of the existing, press box and the storage facility underneath it. And so we did, during the course of all this, we have gotten one bid that we got a while ago, and the project, the one bid just for the building itself was going to be about $120,000. It's $130,000. We can't pay for this all at once, so we would have to probably finance our portion of this for a while. But we've certainly got right now about $70,000 or $80,000 we can commit to it. Biddy has committed $20,000 to us over a 2-year period. We will ask the music boosters to chip in as well, since they would stand to benefit from a new building. And we're looking at some advertising possibilities as well. We obviously we can't promise what we'll do until we know more when it comes to cost, but this is kind of where we're at. And I think I'm finished, Sean.
Well, I just, let me add a little bit. So, I had asked the boosters and Mr. Little to come in. We had met in November, and with the election and everything, we were in the transition. I thought it would be good to come in this spring and at least put this on your radar. Again, I try to be as transparent as possible. I want the boosters and the board to know that if there's something that you desire, I want the board to obviously be aware of that, and how could we work together, whether it's now or in the near future, to potentially improve our facilities. You look at the concession stand project and the stadium entrance, which we had a little bit of cost on with the stadium entrance, but the ticket boxes and the cast iron gates and the work that the boosters have done, and they have the desire to continue to do things like this, and they've still been able to help our different programs and uniforms and wrestling mats and other things, the shot put throwing areas, and they've made a lot of improvements that people aren't necessarily aware of. But I wanted to put this on the board's radar. I wanted you to be able to ask questions of the boosters. Obviously, there are some things that I've looked into with our legal counsel to make sure that we're doing these things the best way to protect the district once again. And I've shared some of that with you. I've shared and again, these are from 2018 now. This estimate was from 2018, right, Mr. Little? Okay. And then these drawings are from 2018, and there are some references that we have recently with the company, Sightline Athletics. There are a lot of references provided to the board this evening on different projects that this company has done for other districts. So I guess if the board has questions.
Do we have any idea what the cost would be for us?
For us, no. I mean, we know that, could I ballpark it after 2 years of feeling like a construction meeting? Probably.
Right.
I believe we'll have around $50,000 in cost. I think we have demo, whether we hire somebody, is probably the safest way to do that. For our employees, I don't know if we have the maintenance staff that can get to those heights and do that demolition. Or they're capable. I don't know if I would wanna put them under those conditions. But you have the demo, you have a concrete foundation, you have permits and inspections that have to be done in the village of Carroll. You have electrical costs. I think Mr. Williams explained that they would expect or hope that we would take care of the electrical work. Soil testing, I mean, learned a lot about soil testing. We would have to have, in order to put in a concrete foundation, you have to do the soil testing. There's money involved there.
Not to interrupt you, the concrete would only be if the existing slab is deemed to be not suitable.
Not suitable. Okay.
So, I'm not a concrete guy, but there's no obvious major wear and tear on that slab. And it's, the majority of the slab's obviously been covered from the elements that's underneath the building.
Do you know, Chad, if in these plans, we have a concrete layout in the requirements for the foundation? I mean, do you know, I don't expect that our current concrete meets these.
That I don't know. I know the proposal for this building would be narrower in width than the current building.
Mm-hmm.
A more efficient use of space, actually create more seating, but narrow. So
Yeah.
as far as the length and depth of it, the size of the slab we currently have, I believe, is big enough.
Right.
That they would just, I don't know if the district would take it on, who would take that on to see is that current slab
Right.
suitable or not?
You'd have to hire an engineer to take samples.
Yeah.
But,
And
and I'm no concrete guy, but obviously been around construction my whole life. What they're specifying or recommending as far as their requirements, I would probably was 3,000 PSI, 4 feet deep.
Right.
I would probably say it's not. It's probably
there's no
not.
way that's going to be.
I think it's more like solid type construction now. But
Yeah. So there would be some cost. I would guess somewhere around 50,000. Again, there's things to consider with how to, if the board would feel like this is something they are financially able to contribute to, and it's a priority at this time or in the near future. Travis can talk about the funding, but there's options with permanent improvement money.
I think the first thing to do would be just to get an all-in cost and not try to say, well, how much is our out-of-pocket versus what's the true turnkey, everything exactly the way we want it. And then we can start talking about bid specifications or bid requirements, statutory requirements that we would take on, along with accepting any, the generosity and the donations from the boosters.
Right.
With the caveat that we know it was going toward this project.
Right, I mean, because this is something that you guys will have to take on.
Right.
We would only give you a check,
Yeah,
basically,
right.
or checks.
Yeah, we talked in October that, the legal advice is that
Right.
it would be better if the district managed it and it was a gift with conditions and improvement accepted strictly for the construction and installation of a press box.
Well, after running through the concession stand, I'm glad to have it over.
Yeah. Bidding, I mean, we got a quote here, but there's things with, it's gonna be over a $50,000 project. Travis would have to bid this out, the board would have to approve to go out to bid on it.
Right.
Those kinds of
And,
things.
and to that point though, Mr. Little, if I remember correctly, you guys went around and trying to get some of these, but there's only kind of one game in town, right? I mean, from what you
Yeah,
guys
there's
gathered.
three major vendors.
Was there?
But Mark and I both.
Yeah, we went through this.
had
Yeah.
It
Major
was,
difficulty getting multiple bids. I would get, hey, here's a picture of this school we just did, great, send me a bid, nothing. I went to state conferences, talked to vendors. This has been the one vendor, I don't have any ties to any vendors, but for this type of project, but this has been the most responsive. They come down and talk to the group, they're willing to do meetings. The other ones, and some of them are more, in the bleacher business.
Yeah.
So they build the press box as part of the bleacher project and not a stadium
Right, I remember, yeah.
like this is.
Would it be possible, because obviously it's probably going on 2 years and the cost of steel and everything's gone up. I mean, I think for all 5 of us, I mean, we really need to see what our part would be.
Sure.
Built in. Is there any way you can get an updated quote?
What I'm wondering is if, and you could probably do this without much of a cost, move forward with drawings, architect, where you can find out exactly what's going to be required as far as concrete, electric, then the press box. I think you might have a little better luck in your turning these drawings into these.
right, well, we actually got drawings, I think, for this project. My only hesitancy with doing that, 'cause I think, because we had that discussion actually, was for us, because that was gonna cost us several $1,000s to
I was gonna
do.
say 3 or 4.
And I was like, do I want us as a group to put that money forward if we don't go forward? You know what I'm saying? 'Cause I'm a penny pincher by my work as treasurer. And so, I hate to just spend money that we don't end up, we don't go forward. That's my concern.
You know, when Travis and I look at facility needs of the district, curriculum, you know, everything that we have, personnel needs of the district, and we look at prioritizing, which we're probably gonna get into this discussion here when we review the wish list of items that, you know, we need to address in the district, in terms of facilities. But I'm confident that we're not, if it's not now, we're not far out on this, in terms of wanting to make that recommendation to the board. You know, timeframe, you know, I think it's realistic to probably say 2 to 3 years. I think it could be an item that is strongly considered it unless the board chooses to do it now. But I see things like, you know, we've got a lot of options. I mean, there's contingency money sitting in our elementary project that has to be spent within the project timeframe that was approved at the ballot issue. If we continue to stay under budget and we don't use our contingency, there will be funds available for facility improvements from our May 2018 bond issue. So there's the potential for contingency money there, interest money that could make it easier financially for the district to chip in and consider doing. And you know, we're 1.5 years away from that project being done. You know, we also have the permanent improvement money that we talked about, and then you have general fund money and capital outlay. But how much does the board want to commit from the general fund towards something like that? When you look at the high school needing a second floor new roof, it's $154,000. That is certainly a priority to keep the building dry. And then we also have things like the asbestos abatement of the part of the high school that we plan to keep, the entrance outside the gym area, the cafeteria, there's 4 classrooms. There's ceiling tiles that need replaced and grids, those are asbestos tiles. You know, new lighting, we'd really like to freshen that up.
So what are the chances of a press box? I mean, that would take priority over a press box for those funds.
Yeah, and I think, you know, as we work with the board tonight and next month, and Travis and I look at the things that we feel we need to really address, I would certainly say the roof is a priority. I think that, you know, as we look at Bloom Elementary, our intermediate school, and using that for preschool, there are asbestos floor tiles over there that I would like to abate and put down new floor tile in that section that will be used for the ESC Learning Step preschool classrooms. But those are, and then we got parking lots. You know, our parking lots, if you walk across them right now, you're noticing they're really cracking. We got to get them sealed, tarred, the cracks tarred.
And I think we would agree with you that those are all extremely important. I think our issue is we have money, we need to spend it.
Yeah.
So there's a couple things, you know, so here a lot's been done by us and by the district on improving the football field. You know, the turf, the new track, the concession stand in the pavilion, the entry. We are finishing up on the shot put pit this year. And so we look at this as just another thing that can help improve our facilities and make them better. It will definitely be it'll be a much nicer press box than what we have. It'll have heat. It'll have air conditioning too, but that's not that necessarily that important, but it'll definitely have heat. So when it gets cold, and we do have games that start getting in October, and we have sort of, if we're lucky enough to get more playoff games, then that'll be a big advantage for handling media and that kind of thing. We also appreciate, because we've had this discussion ourselves, that this is a frustrating project because there is so little public benefit to it. I can justify all night long the value of having a new concession stand and pavilion. I can justify all night long an entry. It's harder to justify a press box because it's frankly, it's just not used by many people. What we also know too, that the thing is not in great shape. And we also know too that it's just gonna continue to be in less great shape going forward. We are in a position right now where we can do something to help. If we don't spend it on this, we will need to look at spending on other projects. I'm sure we can come up with stuff to spend money on around here. I'm no doubt about that.
So I have two questions. One is for Mr. Hahn. When was the current how old is the current press box?
Oh,
That's a
man,
good
it's,
question. Travis has been here
oh,
15 years.
probably 04, 05.
That predates me.
So 20 plus years. So I'm assuming somebody goes up there and assesses, like, again, we just talked about safety. Is somebody gonna fall through the floor?
I think this kind of came on the radar for the boosters. A couple of years ago, we had some holes in the floor of the press box. And this is kind of where the conversation started originally. But we did have John Pugh, our maintenance supervisor, and his staff at the time go out and replace and fix those sections to firm them up, so they're not holes in the floor. But it is a, you know, they're on 4x4 or 6x6 wood posts. It's not a steel frame undercarriage. It is not the Cadillac of press boxes.
No, I understand that, but what my concern is, again, is.
They don't make those anymore.
Is how quickly is it deteriorating? So is it?
Well, the floor is better now than it was 2 years ago.
But my question, is this immediate need or is this a 4 to 5 year need? And then.
I'd say in between. To your original point, maybe not this year. It was on our radar anyway. It's a facility that we own that we put people in. You know, not like you said, it's not a lot.
But how many feet? 16, 15 feet.
What's the size of our press box now?
In my opinion,
It's wider. I can't remember now. The one we have now.
And what we have now is wider. I don't think it's longer.
Yeah, some of the issues, the reason for really looking into it, part of the reason for building, Travis, correct me if I'm wrong, part of the reason for the pole building at the stadium was in preparation of losing the
storage underneath.
Press box as is. So we've been trying to prepare ahead of time, knowing we're gonna lose that storage, so we got the pole building in place for athletic storage and music storage, although they don't do the press box storage. So when that comes down, that's one question I get is, what are you gonna do with everything that's underneath of there? There's not much left underneath of there now. It's really under there just for convenience. It will all fit in the building that the board paid for that's out there.
Yeah, and we had stuff stored underneath there as well that we added on to the concession stand a couple of years ago, and all that stuff is down in storage there.
And my second question is, as a booster group, are you married to this project, or it sounds like?
No, we're not.
No, is it? Okay.
No, we're not married to it. We haven't even had a vote among our group to go forward with it. This is something we've talked about for how long, Barb?
Yeah, I'll gladly take responsibility for pushing the project.
Yeah.
For me, I wouldn't, my house was built in 72 and my kitchen is 72. I won't remodel my kitchen and leave my stove. I'm gonna get all new appliances. It's just a comparison, but for me, it's not just, sure, aesthetically, it would be much better. If I brought football staff in, they'll tell you how bad it is for them from a strategical standpoint. It's not high enough. That's their big issue, for two reasons. One, for film vantage points. So even when we share film with our opponents, which is mandatory, every opponent we get says, your film is so bad, because you're at eye level. We also have the first row of spectators are literally in the windows. Mm-hmm. So you have our coaches, not only just blocking vision, but football coaches, admittedly so, aren't always the cleanest spoken guys, and are emotional, even if they are clean spoken. And so you've got literally fans right on top of them. So even if it's not, I'm not even talking profanity, but if they're blasting number 45 for dropping a pass, and 45's parents is in the row right in front of them. Or we've got our announcer who's a super emotional guy, and we've got Liberty coaches 1 foot away from him with no barrier. I mean, I've been up multiple games and had to separate our volunteer workers from opposing coaches. I'm not kidding, just because there's no barrier. And so again, even if it's not profanity based, I'm announcing the game and the opposing coach is right here slamming one of our, hey, 45 can't guard any or whatever. It's not a good situation.
So the press box that we'd be looking at would have a private room closed-in room for both coaching staffs.
Away from all volunteers, and there'd be a
Yeah,
roof hatch.
and there would be a hallway behind it so that, you know, people can come and go, but those guys would have the privacy that they need. Yeah, well, I can't do that. And then, of course,
Close we can get.
well, and then our football coaches indicated that he probably would have all of his guys spend the evening on the roof.
Mark, I know you guys have continued to do a lot financially to support the student athletes. You mentioned here a few minutes ago that the boosters would not have enough to cover the cost
Right now.
up front, and that you might have to finance some of it. I have concerns from legal counsel about a third-party entity financing something on board-owned property that is subject to a lien.
Sure.
Well, and I think that the financing would be, if you set aside a certain amount of dollars each year,
Right.
again, as a donation to the
That's,
board.
that's what the plan was.
Right.
Yeah, so this is, we did have a loan on the concession stand.
Right.
You know, it took us 5 years to pay that loan off, actually 5.5.
And they're just saying, avoid that at all costs.
Understood.
Because if the booster leadership dissolved or went away for whatever reason, and the revenue wasn't generated, and the payments couldn't be made, that is the board willing to assume financial responsibility? Would you allow somebody to finance something on your privately owned property at your house, a third party to come in and finance something that they promised to pay on?
So I'll just say that in response to that, because I understand exactly what you're saying. So we financed our loan through People's Bank. I'm sure that People's Bank, they gave us a loan, they gave us a great rate on the loan. I'm sure they're probably thinking in the back of their minds, if those boosters screw this up, the board's got their back. Fortunately, it never came to that. I actually wrote a letter to the CEO of the bank after we paid off the loan, saying I think that the bank was nuts lending us the money. We are a group of volunteers. None of us have financial experience.
Right.
We're just doing the best we can. God only knows what could have happened with that project. But yet it worked out. And so in fact, they called me and said, hey, we're happy to loan you more.
Would you feel more comfortable, or would the board feel more comfortable if you say you have to spend that money? If this is something that is within our reach in the next couple of years, why wouldn't you continue to build
We would.
funds?
Yeah.
Where you wouldn't have to finance that?
Well, interest rates are so low right now that I think in our case, I'm old. I'd like to get this project done at some point and then move on to other things. I think Barb has made this promise, I have too. As long as this thing is pending financially, I will stay with the group. I don't know what that's worth, but you have that from me, that I'll make sure that's my promise. It's the same promise I made with the concession stand. And so, I think we're committed to sticking around to help manage all that until the project is set up.
You guys are amazing. You really are. The time you put in, it's
They don't
incredible.
have kids.
I know.
Yeah.
And I just want to say,
Well,
like, I
they're not
think,
here forever.
and I
They're not
get
here
that.
forever.
Red flag, red flag.
But just to hear the verbal commitment is huge, and I think the whole community really respects the group. I think this whole thing would be easier to say yes to if we had more details. If we knew how much it was gonna cost, if we had an updated plan, even 3 versions of it. This one's a little smaller, but it's more expensive, or this one's a little bigger, and.
I think Travis and I, as we look at our priorities that impact students, they obviously pointed this out. There are students who use that facility, no, they don't. There are adults that use it, for 10 football games, 5 varsity, 5 JV, some freshmen, some 7th and 8th grade football games, soccer games.
You have track, you gotta.
Track.
Yeah.
Boys and girls, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're told that the music uses it every day during fall.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Sure.
Mr. Falvo certainly does. So, as we look at what we have coming down the pike, I think that, in my opinion, I think Travis and I would probably feel comfortable saying that it's within, the next couple of years, that I think we would feel comfortable saying, okay, this is a priority for some a capital improvement project. I think we're that close. I just can't say for the board that right now I would make that recommendation, knowing that some other costs that we have to take care of our existing facilities. But again, these are only recommendations that I sometimes have to make, knowing what I know. And you know.
Well, and it's the same thing on our end too. If for some reason we go into this further and we decide that we thought the cost was gonna be this and ends up being this,
Right.
then we probably have to say no as well.
Yeah.
So,
And that's kind of where I'm at on the drawings, you know, I
Yeah.
know you hate to put $3,000 to $5,000 out there, but you're probably not gonna get a firm price, especially,
Until you
you know, with the electric, what's gonna be required on the electric, until you have complete drawings. And to me, you know, it's gonna take 6 to 8 months to get those drawings put together realistically, and by that time, you know, it's 6 to 8 months, get pricing together, that's a year.
Sure.
Another 6 or 8 months, to where Travis and Tom thinks I think it would work out, really.
And I tell these guys all the time, even if it's 5 years down the road, we're still gonna play on Friday nights, we're still gonna have soccer. It's not gonna change anything, especially from a public view, but so it's not that we can't wait, but
I just think the drawings would allow you to move forward and, you know, headed in that direction. Because I think, you know, I'm not speaking on behalf of the whole board, but, you know, I'm for it. I don't know that right now is the right time, but a year from now, year and a half, based on what Travis and Tom.
And I'm not, I mean, I'm for it and everything, but you're talking about $180,000 to $200,000 for a new press box. Is there any way we can remodel that? I haven't been in it for years, I don't remember, and just add on to what we have, roof height, insulate the walls inside for the heat for less cost.
yeah, we had, Eversol Builders is who built that existing structure. We had him in 2 or
3 years ago, probably, yeah.
And of course, at that time, we were trying to see what kind of work we could get done on the existing structure and stay under the bid threshold. And we could do a little bit. I mean, it would have been like window replacement, door replacement, some tongue heaters, you know, some stuff. The biggest challenge, I think, is the height. Like, to use the existing structure and somehow try to get higher. And we definitely can't build on that roof. We
Right.
can go up higher on that roof. We asked about that. It's not really liability wise to do that.
Any other question?
Does this project come with video scoreboards too?
you know,
That's a whole other
It's on the
project.
wish list.
I'm just talking about the impact. Would be great
Yeah.
if that was included,
yeah, understood.
but
Hey, thanks, guys, I really.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thanks,
appreciate all the hard work you guys do.
Well, certainly, and thanks, for hearing us out.
yeah, thank you for your time, you guys.
And just as a follow-up real quick, guys, when do you guys think you can kind of get something, whether you have the drawings, you have to do that Joe talked about, or anything like that, when can you get like a price? I mean,
I don't know. You know, we can start, but you know, we're a board group, we move as, I'm not, you know, we just don't move fast.
We can work on that as well with Dennis and getting
Okay.
electrical, wireless. There's a lot of different things. that-
Estimates,
Ballparks.
a lot of
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some might be able to help
Right.
with construction.
Well, shore as well, possibly, but.
Concrete and all the fencing.
Yeah, we just gotta get a lot of different estimates from a lot of different vendors.
Know as well that, we do have a commitment, a verbal commitment from Biddy
Right.
of $20,000.
Get you closer.
That's with this board.
Yeah,
But
Um,
here, like, why, I guess here's another question, if we structure it where we run the entire thing,
Which we would.
which we would, which I'm saying, so we take it on and you're just the financial backer.
yeah, so
Which is what, because
Yeah,
that
they
eliminates a
would
lot
all,
of
Biddy
your-
and boosters would have to make a donation that you guys accept that
Absolutely.
goes into a new fund that you
yeah,
guys approve.
so basically Biddy would give their money to us, and then we would give it to you guys. So here's, just so that you're aware of this, I'm still slightly burned on this, and so this is why I'm asking the board to consider it this way. When we were doing the concession stand, I thought we were done. Then I'd get another bill. I thought we were done, then I'd get another bill. I thought we were done, then I'd get another bill. So I had my mind that the project was gonna be around, I think, $150,000 to build. It ended up being $170,000. And so, that was a lot for us to absorb. And we did it, but it was, when I had in my mind that this is how much it was gonna cost, and it ended up being more, it, you know, I get this twitch.
Right.
So in this case, for us to be able to know our fixed cost is gonna be that building, and then that's it, and then you guys kind of take on the risk of everything else.
Yeah.
And it may not be that exact amount. We would have a set amount, and then whatever the boosters were able to contribute, I think that's what the board would go into that, not having a set maybe amount that's gonna be our out of pocket,
Right.
but we know what the maximum is,
You're right.
but it's an investment, so.
So anyway, all right, thank you.
Thank you guys so
Thank you.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right,
Okay.
moving on to section 2. 2021 wish list. Then 2.2, February 2020 enrollment report. Mr. Hahn?
So I'm gonna kind of hand things over to Travis, but what has traditionally been done, and I've come to respect it and be okay with it, is a wish list that every department can kind of submit. It's kind of the pie in the sky items that each department, director, supervisor, principal would like to see for their buildings. And we kind of compile all that, and we put it together on a spreadsheet, and we share it with the Board of Education. Typically this time of year, our planning starts years ahead of the opening of a school year. So, but in the spring, we kind of compile a list and we bring it to the board for personnel needs. You know, just with staffing, we look at enrollment, you know, curriculum and supplies. We look at facilities and maintaining our facilities. You know, we have adoptions for curriculums like math this year. That's up. That's a very expensive item as well. But we always want the board to see all the different items, and then we try to kind of explain some things if you have questions, and then we typically in March will make recommendations to the board for items at that planning session, what we think are priorities for different departments. And then at that point, any item needing board approval, we bring back around April. You know, things like personnel, you know, positions, you know, capital outlay or projects are going out to bid on things like the high school roof. We bring those items back typically in April. So I'm gonna let Travis kind of take over here with the wish list, and you know, certainly chime in.
Just real quick, the way that we set this up, if you kind of go, it's a little backwards. If you go toward the end of the document, lines 112 through 116 has a baseline, and I talked about this in January as we're planning for next year. These are some of the few items that we truly have control over when you look at a budget from year to year, of things that don't kind of change automatically. And taken out of the, not looking at the permanent improvement fund, but just looking at the general fund capital outlay, personnel, purchase services, and supplies and curriculum. Those are line items that are directly on the 5-year forecast. So again, as we look at in forecast, column F, it doesn't mean we have to stay within those parameters, but it just means that's the additional amount of set-asides within those line items that's in the forecast. So again, it gives you a baseline. If you exceed that, you know, it'll have maybe an adverse effect on us bottom line. If we stay within those parameters or even lower, then certainly that helps us build a cushion, helps us add to our carryover. With that being said, we'll start here with the personnel, which you can see the total amount of personnel request. And there's some notes on there, and I'm not sure how much we were going to get in there tonight, but about 140,000 worth of personnel. Currently, we only have 82,000 in there, which is 1.5 additional positions. The purchase services and the curriculum, quite honestly, I think pretty much everything on here within those areas is probably a go. We probably put too much detail on here because some of those items are a little smaller ticket and, you know, things that the buildings need, the principals requested. So the 3 areas that we really kind of look at here are the general fund capital outlay, the PI fund, and the personnel. With the PI fund, real quickly, as we talked about in the campaign, we look at things like keeping our buildings safe, keeping our buildings dry, keeping up with preventative maintenance like the sealing of the parking lots that's within here, and also investing in technology and transportation. So what makes up this 800, a little over 800,000, is all of the technology request, so less the additional staffing. So over 255,000 of technology, which we know, unless the board rules otherwise, we're probably not going to be able to invest that much in technology in 1 year.
But that would all come from PI?
Yes.
Tech? Okay.
Yes. But I think it's important, again, like Sean said, pie in the sky. But these are things that they take the time to research and look at, and that's truly what they feel they need within their department or within their buildings. Maintenance, it's basically from the asbestos abatement, which I think we agree we're probably not going to be able to absorb that currently this year, but that is in that PI number, along with the second floor roof replacement. We did get some quotes on paving the grass areas out here. It's roped off right now, but you've all been here for games. People just park everywhere, and a lot of that gets torn up. We did get some quotes on excavating that and paving it.
For more parking or just to?
Both.
Just to not have grass?
At 33,000, we thought that was a little steep,
Yeah.
quite frankly.
Yeah.
But sealing the lots here, these last three, will keep us on our current rotation. Again,
Jax, real quick,
extending the life of those
in regards to
assets.
the-
Yeah.
The roof replacement, the second floor. You might wanna go through what we did, what was it, a year and a half ago, just with those guys, 'cause.
Go ahead, Sean. Yeah.
Yeah, on the first floor, which would be the band room, the gym hallway, the cafeteria, the 4 classrooms on the first floor, just down from the office, basically the part that we're keeping, we tore off the roof, put a whole new roof on it. That was obviously an expensive project, over $200,000, but that part of the building was in horrible condition. We have a layer over the second story, the 2-story section, and that was replaced over 20 years ago. It had a 20-year warranty on it. Shore Architects has looked at it multiple times over the last 3 years. We were able to stretch out another year. Dennis, our new maintenance supervisor, our previous maintenance supervisor, John Pugh, have been up there with Tony Shore, who they do roof projects and oversee a lot of those. That membrane is cracking badly and is starting to crumble, and there's some wet insulation in the middle. If we can't take care, it's clear that we're going to be in that building for several years still, and we need to be able to at least keep it dry as much as possible. And this $145,000 or $150,000 overlay, I forget it's not a TPO, it's got a 10-year warranty on it, but it's an overlay. It's not a complete tear-off. The wet insulation would be cut out, replaced, and then they put an overlay over top of it with a 10-year warranty. And I do believe right now, looking at where we are with our facilities, that we've probably got to find a way to use that building for 7 to 10 years. Honestly, at this point. Now, if OFCC comes back to us in 2 years and they say, hey, you're in CPAP and we're ready to fund your project, that could change. But I don't think it's going to be the next 2 or 3 years. Right. And it takes 3 or 4 years to design and build these buildings. So I think we're at least looking at 7 to 10. Sure. So we got to be able to take care of that.
One caveat with the roof replacement, we've already met with Shore just to get some numbers and some timeline. In order to get that under roof in a comfortable timeline, we would need permission to go out to bid in the March meeting. It's a little soon, I apologize. Theoretically, normally what we do is have this wish list approved at the March planning, not approved, but brought back to you at the March planning session and approved in April. So if there's anything else, or if you're not comfortable with the roof replacement, again, just let us know. But at this point, the plan is to have it on the agenda in March, at least to have permission to go out to bid. Doesn't lock us into any bid, it just continues the process, throughout the bidding.
Let me ask you this, is there ever, obviously you want to just say yes to everything, right? So obviously some things can't happen. Is there does anyone track who gets what? Does the primary get their fair share? Is intermediate, or is that ever an issue?
That's a good question.
We try to make it equitable. Now, some are more conservative with their requests.
I can see that.
And we don't go back to them and say, are you sure you don't want more?
Right.
But we do, they're free to put in every request you could imagine.
Right.
A lot of the elementary materials right now are more curriculum and, obviously supplies and curriculum materials compared to facility needs, because we're about, we're kind of getting ready to move on to the elementary school. We give everybody, kind of the free rein to put in their request.
I think that's great, I just didn't know if, you know, you would be
Yeah, we
transparent and
do,
say,
like-
look, you
like
know,
I'm
you got
gonna-
this last time.
I'm gonna
and-
bring up a point to you tonight. The district, sometimes we don't always know what we don't know. If a music program, if the choir program or the band programs need something, and they don't go to their principal and ask, and their principal doesn't ask us, and the boosters is funding something, and the music boosters is funding instrument purchases or riser purchases and band uniform purchases, you know, that's where I kind of got involved and went to the middle school and high school principals and said, hey, I want you to go to your music program, and I want to find out what their needs are, because we often hear from the boosters that they're working on things that we've never been made aware of, when I kind of feel like the board has a responsibility to provide some of these
You're
things.
talking about the risers.
Risers,
I mean, for example.
band instruments.
Right.
You know, band instruments are very expensive. If you look at Travis's
Obviously.
spreadsheet on page, lines 39
Mhm.
through 43, you can see there's about $14,758 of band instruments that they are in need of. The risers with shipping will cost 6 risers with, that are safe and have the back supports on them, and can be easily moved. You know, with shipping and everything, they're just under $15,000. So I believe when the decisions and recommendations are made, that we gotta look at what are we allocating towards athletics and what are we allocating towards the arts program.
That's my point of my question.
So-
You gotta make, I mean, I think you gotta track.
So I believe in that, and I think ultimately, you know, we should support those things, those programs just as much. Tonight, we heard about proposals for projects, but I also think that we need to look at, okay, we've spent $280,000, which was financed over 4 years, on a track.
Right.
You know, we are using taxpayer money to put in $279,000 tennis courts. We've spent $30,000 on wrestling to have a nice wrestling area
Absolutely.
at our high school, which is the best we can do right now. But if you haven't been up there, I encourage you to walk up to the wrestling room. It looks like a real wrestling room for the first time.
It's awesome.
And so we've done those things, but I think we also need to point out that there are things on here with instrumental music and vocal music that I think we should support as well.
Yeah, and to your point, I mean, I agree with Sean, and that's what I was gonna say as well, is, I mean, we talk about being well-rounded as a school district, and you look at these needs, and talking to Mr. Falvo, and going to a choir concert, I mean, those risers, yeah, they're expensive, but I mean,
But it's
that's my
necessary.
opinion. I think
Yeah.
when we talk about being well-rounded and just how their boosters club struggles a little bit,
Mhm.
I think that, you know, we do need to be in a position to give the performing arts, you
Yeah.
know, healthy.
What about like, the auditorium sound system? I mean, that's not an old building.
Well,
Why is
see,
that?
see, that's something, I guarantee you right now, when you look at technology and you look at line 90 of your spreadsheet, the sound system, that absolutely has to be done this year because it's a Federal Communications
yeah.
Commission, the
Yeah.
frequency that we use is no longer provided, and you have to have a license for that. So our wireless microphones and sound system all have to be FCC compliant, and we're gonna have to purchase that. We will not have a sound system in there if we don't. Mark,
Probably not.
And then what about like primary? I mean, those,
Mhm.
they're minimal compared to a lot of the other requests. I mean, is the PTO aware of these little requests?
Yeah,
'Cause
they are.
They always look for things to, they would love to buy
In the
some of this.
PTO, they do a ton, they do a ton of things, but again, a lot of these are manipulatives that are used in the classroom for math and reading, and you know, consonant, vowel, consonant, touch and read words.
Right.
STEM supplies, they have a STEM special at both the primary and the intermediate school. Letter magnets help with the phonics piece that we're really emphasis.
Oh, no, I think it's all important. I just think, you know, I wanna see everybody get everything, so it's kind of like, what,
Yeah.
who got what last time? And I think it was really helpful that you let us know what was put towards athletics. All right.
Those things are, I think, are simple. What drives up the primary cost is not something that they requested, but we put on there. You look at our enrollment numbers,
Yep.
and you look at 175 first graders, and we only have 6 second grade teachers. And with enrollment, we can't afford to transfer anybody in those lower levels. So we have to add, we're gonna need a second grade teacher next year. We can't have, we just can't, it's not good to put 30 second graders in classrooms next year. So, you know, I'm telling you right now, I'm gonna have to recommend the second grade teaching position. And just continue down, you know, through there. you know, we're being creative, but there's issues in 5th grade and 8th grade next year. The 5th grade has 176 students. The 4th grade has 176 students, and they're gonna be moving into 5th grade. And the middle school, the teachers, by our negotiated agreement, can only see 170 students per day.
Right.
So we've been creative, we've looked at every teaching license, and we can do some things to, you know, we might be able to have a transfer from a grade that has a lower grade level or a lower number of students next year to not add huge cost to the district, but transfer or repurpose a position to 5th grade. And then you look at the 7th grade has 186 kids. It's our largest class in the district right now. And there are only 6 sections being taught of 8th grade core subject areas. So that also needs to be addressed. But we have looked at license types of our existing staff, and if we can repurpose a teacher that's at the high school that comes over to the middle school for 3 periods a day and has a math license, he can pick up potentially a couple math classes. And then if we take a part-time high school science teacher that's teaching 4 periods at the high school, we can make it an adjustment and add 4 periods at the middle school and 3 at the high school. That adds 7 sections, and we're able to meet the staffing needs of 8th grade, 5th grade, and 2nd grade by really very little or creative cost measures. So we've got some personnel things on here, we've got some facility things. You know, I don't know if there's anything else that really stands out to you. I know the staff laptops on line 79 and 80, that's a rotation that we don't want to get behind on. Those devices are about 6 years old, and we're having issues with them. So the high school and middle school laptops, and then Mark, our IT director, would come back next year with the primary and intermediate school laptops.
Is there a reason that not everybody just has laptops? Why there's desktops?
All the teachers have laptops.
No, I know, but I mean, why desktops?
Like the secretaries,
The secretaries,
the principals.
Yeah, it's just in terms of working multiple screens.
Yeah.
You know, Mark in the IT department went in that direction where those staff members wanted desktops. The teachers wanted to transition to laptops.
Sure.
And that happened, like I said, 5 or 6 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Mark did list out his priorities in terms of technology. So Travis and I, what we typically do is kind of come up with a flat dollar amount, and then we say, here you go, Mark.
Figure it out.
You know, figure it out which ones you want to go with.
Right.
But the sound system was big. The interactive video displays, line 89, at the elementary school, we're going to interactive flat panels. This is an interactive flat panel. This is what will be in the classrooms.
Mm-hmm.
In our middle schools, the rest of our buildings right now, we have smart boards, and they're failing. They've been here longer. I've been here 7 years. They've been here longer than I have. So we're looking at purchasing the same manufacturer and model, Clever Touches, to start replacing our smart boards with interactive flat panels here in the middle school as well. Chromebook carts, obviously, as we run out of space for desktops in our elementaries, we have to get more creative, and it's also, they're more durable at this point. The Chromebooks are just more efficient. Students can log in easier. We're using, you know, we're pretty much have become a Google district, and using the cloud, and everything we pretty much do is web-based. So we're able to get about twice the amount of Chromebooks and carts compared to the purchase of one set of laptops in a cart.
Right.
So, you know, we've tried to be very conservative with our technology spending too, but those are some of I just wanted the board to obviously see what's being
And so for like
proposed.
the press box, the 30 grand, that's just,
Yeah, this document has kind of been put together over the last couple months, so that was really an early estimate. Yeah, obviously that would be on hold. And
right.
what we like to do is kind of pare this down, bring it back to you in the March planning session. Obviously, again, any additional staffing positions have to be separately approved by the board, as well as any items that had to be publicly bid, anything over 50,000 improvement. So
I think you have to look at the board. You know, you can get caught up in the weeds here that we may know quite a bit more about by working with our supervisors, directors, and principals. But for the board, you know, you got to go down to the bottom line, like Travis said. You can start backwards, but for good reason. You can see, you know, $1.3 million in requests. His budget has about 919,000 budgeted in. Well, if we spend 1.3 million, I don't know if that really represents fiscally conservative spending. And, you know.
Well, that's
we're
why I
gonna-
said some of
we're
that's
gonna
gonna
be
come out, right? Some of it we're not ready to do,
dollars
so.
over, and you also look at the permanent improvement fund. I mean, so there's $800,000 of requests, and, you know, Travis has 400,000 comfortably in there that we collect.
Right.
But that's a fund that you don't wanna deplete. I mean, if we had to replace an elevator, shaft for $15,000, there are things that just pop up that we have to have a maintenance fund for to fix things, and that's what we didn't have before. So that fund can continue to build over the years, with what we collect each year, and I think we spend what we have to, and probably nothing more sometimes. And then I think the board, you know, I would like to see a carryover. I think we're gonna have a carryover, but I would like to see, my opinion is I would like to see us continue to build our cash balance, our carryover, and still meet the needs of our students and staff, and take care of our facilities. So that's what we work on.
Does anybody have any questions in regards to anything else before they bring that to us in the March meeting?
No, thank you so much.
Great. All right, Sean, enrollment. Shoot up to?
Yeah, just real quick, I just wanted you to do, this is a February enrollment report. Again, the things I wanted to point out, look at current first grade, look at current fourth grade, and current seventh grade. Again, the middle school issue is strictly, you know, there's a million ways you can look at it, but we need 7 sections, and we have 6 sections in 5th grade and 8th grade. We're not gonna be able to get by with 6 sections anymore. I think we have a way to do that, which you saw tonight. And then we talked about the 2nd grade position. So that's really it. I'm hoping, we're seeing about 65 new students a year in the last couple of years. That's about 5 kids per class. And, you know, as we plan, we are looking at continuing that trend of about adding 5 to 6 kids per class across the district. And when I look at 2nd, 5th, and 8th next year, those are concerning areas. So,
Is the total enrollment just a little over 2,000?
2077.
yeah, 2,077 in our seats here. Now we have 90 kids at the Career Center.
Right.
We have, you know, 57 are doing College Credit Plus. We have kids at consortium units, you know, county classrooms. So, but yeah, almost 2,100.
People still ask me those kind of questions.
Yeah.
I'm glad you asked. I looked at the number, but I didn't commit it, so I'm glad you asked. Now I know.
You see a lot of numbers.
See all the things I can learn from you, Mark?
I don't know. Better ask them quick.
Can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Abbott, second by Mrs. Sherman. Travis?
Mr. Abbott,
Yes.
Mrs. Sherman,
Yes.
Mr. Bratton,
Yes.
Mr. Jimmy Johnson,
Yes.
Mr. Rod Johnson.
Yes. Time out, 7:28, Travis.
Hey, I got stock of you guys. Johnson.
That's right. You just miss those